Good evening. I call the June 3rd meeting of the Board of Zoning Adjustments to order. Could we have the roll, please?
All right. Mr. Cole.
Here.
Ms. Hand.
Here.
Mr. Foley.
Here.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. LaBeouf.
Here.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
All right. And Mr. Gear.
Here.
Okay.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 6th, 2021 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to check them over? Any corrections or additions?
I'll make a motion to approve the May
6th.
6th, 2021 meeting minutes.
All those in favor?
Need a second.
Need a
Oh,
second.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh.
All right. All right. Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? They are approved. All right. I do not have any communications. Mr. Vice Chairman, do you?
Nope.
All right. Old business is next on the agenda, and we're going to move this item to the end so that y'all don't have to sit and listen to us talk about bylaws. And if the situation merits it, we can always carry them over to the next meeting. So we're going to move that to the end and decide then what to do about it. All right. So I call the first case, BZA case SV 21-06-01-11, West Linwood Drive. If you would come up and state your name and address and sign the sheet there and tell us the nature of your hardship.
My name is Jared Bussey. My address is 1604 28th Avenue South, Homewood. I am the architect on the project. The clients wish to do a small expansion to an existing master bedroom and add a covered patio off the back. Right now, that corner of the house is slightly non-compliant with a 4.6-foot setback. Our expansion is going to make that just slightly worse at 4.25 feet. And so to maintain that existing non-conforming condition and to try to minimize our impact, we're asking for a 0.75-foot variance for the rear addition. The property line isn't quite square with the house, so the further you go back, the more it tapers just a little bit.
This is a public meeting, and if anyone would like to speak to this case, they can come forward. Seeing none, or is there anyone online on Zoom? Okay. Then we'll close the public portion and go to questions from the board.
So the actual addition, the enclosed part of it, is only coming out 6 feet or something?
Correct.
7 feet from what the existing house is already?
Correct. There's just a small expansion of actual conditioned space, and then the covered patio.
Then the rest of it's just the open covered patio?
Right, it's open. Mm-hmm.
Would they be willing to proffer not to screen it in the future?
Yes.
Is this using the same materials, or are you recladding the whole place to look this?
No, we're the rendering. It's hard to
Yeah.
capture what it is, but we're gonna just match all the
Use the
materials.
actual
That's right. Use the same cedar shake, match the paint. There's a patio there now. It's just gonna get expanded.
I used to live behind in one house over from this house, and I remember when that addition was done.
Oh, really?
Gosh, it's been a while.
So for staff, I'm confused on the right side variance, he's not touching the existing structure. Why do we have to rule on that? Just, it's existing, right? Well, maybe I'm reading this wrong. We have on your recap list, it says that we have a final setback variance to consider also on the right building? Or is that wrong? It's on here.
There's not a right side request, there's just a left side request. Right,
Ignore that.
Ignore that,
All
yes,
right.
they had.
Sherry,
revised
can you
the
turn on your mic
application.
and pull it to you?
They revised the application.
You turn your mic on.
I'm sorry. They had revised the application to remove that.
Okay.
But that's not what y'all ended up getting in your packets.
That makes sense.
Any other questions from the board? Do I hear a motion?
I'll move we approve BZA case SV 21-06-01.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Ms. Hand,
Yes.
and Ms. LeBeouf.
Yes. Your request is approved, and you have 180 days to pull your permit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Next is case SV 21-06-02, 433 Hillwood Drive.
I'm Richard Page from Page Construction. I've been working with the Woods for several years on this project, and we designed this project to be as simplistic as we could, but giving the Woods is the most for their money. And so the design of it was to keep that line of the house where it is. Now the corner of the house is 7.8 feet off the property line. So we tried to maintain that to simplify the roof. And twofold, if I were to push that any, then I would encroach into the fire egress of the master bedroom on the left-hand side of the house. So we're asking for a variance of 2.2 feet. I know there's been a question about the fireplace. I've run some calculations on the fireplace as well. And as the property line slants back toward the back side of the property, the closest edge of that fireplace is 7.8 feet from the property line. And then at the end of the covered porch, it expands out to 9.
I'll open up the public portion of the meeting. If there's anyone here that would like to speak to this case, you could come forward now or raise your hand on the Zoom meeting if you're online. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public portion and open it up for questions from the board.
You were supposed to also give us your address for the record.
Sorry, 1805 Val Green Lane, Hoover, Alabama, 35226.
So looking at your plans, there's this small part of the chimney, I think, that's sticking out from the line of the building, is that correct?
That is correct.
And then is there like a overhang above it? Or what is this rectangular space in orange?
What is what now?
I'm not sure if I'm looking at your plans correctly, but around the chimney, there's like this orange box. Is that just your dimensions?
That's the actual fireplace there.
This kind right here? Okay, great, thank you.
Do you guys ever look at locating the fireplace and the chimney on the rear?
We have looked at that, however, in speaking with the Woods, that would block their view of the backyard and their children playing, so we would prefer to keep it on the right-hand side.
I don't know if I was clear when I prepared the report, but the variance is actually because of the back corner of the house where the addition will start. It's not for the fireplace. The fireplace will be the same distance as the back corner of the house from the property line because of the angle.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that.
I hope you're right.
Well, it'll have.
The math
Well, yeah, it'll
doesn't
have
work.
to-
The math doesn't work, but
Yeah.
as long as you're okay with it, I'm okay
Yeah.
with it.
I can assure you that fireplace won't be closer to 7.8.
Yeah. So the variance request is actually because of that back corner of the house is 7.8 feet. All right,
The
7.8.
back corner of the house is actually at 9. That's a
It's the-
discrete porch.
Yeah.
You're talking about the
The back of
existing.
the porch.
The existing's at 7.8,
The existing is 7.8,
7.8.
yes.
and really the variance is as drawn, so we're not giving you 7.8 to go straight the whole backyard, just as you're presenting it, it's 7.8 fanning out to that 9. That's what the variance is going to be
Correct,
for.
correct.
Any other questions from the board? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept BZA case number SV-21-06-02 for the 7.8 feet variance as submitted and drawn.
I
Thank
s-
you.
I second that.
All right. Mr. Cole,
Yes.
Mr. Foley,
Yes.
Ms. Hand,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
and Ms. LaBeouf.
Yes. Thank you. Your request is approved, and you have 180 days to pull your permit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, before we start this next case, I want to explain to you how this is going to work. Next case is SV 21-06-03 for 214 Edgewood Boulevard. We have people here present, and we have people on Zoom. And so when we come to the public portion, we will ask the people who are here in person to come first. And once we hear all of y'all, then we will go to the ones who are participating by Zoom. You will have 2 minutes to make your remarks. We've got a lot of people, and I want to make sure that everyone gets to be heard if they want to be heard. So please try to be concise with your remarks. Also, if you're just going to second something that someone else has said, it's fine to just come up and say that I agree with what the previous speaker said or something to that effect, so that we don't take up any extra time. But I do want to hear from everyone that wants to speak. When you come up, please state your name and address and sign the list that's on the podium as well. And I hope that if you have any questions when the time comes, just please ask me. So if the applicant or their representative would come forward for SV 21-06-03. Good Good evening. Please tell us the nature of your hardship under the code.
We came prepared with materials, so I'm just gonna bring these up for y'all. Just give me a
And for
minute.
those that are on Zoom, I'll tell you that we do have it up so that the people on Zoom can see what we're talking about as well. Thank you.
We do have more than 2 minutes.
Oh, y'all do, but I'm talking about the, yes, y'all do, y'all do.
1 minute, you get 1 minute.
30 seconds and that's
We're gonna
it.
try not to take up too much time. We do have a.
And we need to sign.
I just needed to say really quick, they had included as part of their application, the request for a variance for the fence, but the fence will go to
For
the city council.
council.
I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Yes. In case anybody's wondering and what you've seen online, that council handles front yard fence variances, not the Board of Zoning Adjustments. So we'll just be addressing the addition to the house and the pool. Okay?
Great, well, thank you, guys. I want to do just a quick introduction of us and our family. We understand, hey, the pink house is very important. 214 Edgewood Boulevard is our property address. So we're the Mobleys. My wife, Rachel Mobley, she was a thespian in high school. You'll understand why the artsy portion of that is important when we talk about kind of the history a little bit. Went to Alabama where we met in their theater program. And then graduated in English education. Taught school for 8 years in English and British Lit. And she is now a sommelier, has that distinguishment, and works for the Classic Wine Company in Homewood. My name is Clayton Mobley, and I have been in real estate development and private equity for about 12 years now. You know, as is related to this, our company has done 6 historically significant renovations, preservations, 2 that were even a little bigger than the scope of this project. So we do have some experience in that. And then we have our little girl, Stevie Lois, who is 4 months old, and she is adorable. But we do completely adore her, and we truly do want to see her, walk to Edgewood Elementary School and grow through the high school. So we're really excited. We as a family really cherish and love this property. As a real estate developer, you're told not to get emotionally attached to a property. Too late for me. I'm there, and we really do love the property. And I want to take just a minute for Rachel to explain kind of some of the history behind the pink house.
I think it's important for y'all to know that, and particularly the community, to know how much we love this property and appreciate and respect its history. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about its history. This was built by Eleanor and George's Bridges in 1921. They are one of Birmingham's biggest power couples. I've been so enthralled by the box of artifacts that we were gifted when we purchased the property by the previous owners. They gave us this box of letters and diaries, and we just, we've been eating away at that. So I'll share some of my favorite little points from that. But Eleanor Massey, before she became a Bridges, she was Birmingham's debutante, and the fact that the Massey family daughter is marrying an artist, was a big deal. In fact, her father, the Massey family, he was responsible for giving Birmingham its name, the Magic City. So this is a big family, and Eleanor fell in love with an artist, and it turned out that her father, while he gifted them the property out in the country to build their home on, back when Homewood wasn't anything, it was just land out on the other side of the mountain. While Mr. Massey, gave that present to get them started, he was not in favor of the wedding. He actually boycotted his own daughter's wedding, even though he paid for it. So big scandal, but we have We have Eleanor and George's as these, you know, fireball characters who came together and created something truly beautiful and magnificent. Not just the structure itself, which has such beauty and taste with Italianate architecture, but the people that they drew together, being part of that artistic community through George's success as a sculptor, they ended up collecting all these friends from around the world with artistic and literary acclaim. We've got friendship with F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway. Eleanor was actually roommates with Amelia Earhart in finishing school. And so we have all these really interesting relationships. But it's said that the Fitzgeralds and Hemingway actually came to the Pink House, which is so cool. But we know for sure that they traveled with them, specifically to Paris. In fact, my favorite story, and this is the story that I wanted to share from our little diary reading, they were all hanging out in the streets of Paris one night, and Eleanor and George's, they had big personalities, and Eleanor got mad at George's, and she's in the streets of Paris, takes off her ring, and shouts, "This circle can't hold me," throws it into the streets of Paris, and runs away with Zelda for the night. But these are these big personalities who are just charismatic and wonderful, and they respect the arts, and they were patrons of the arts. At the Pink House, they created an orphanage after the World War that was a liberal arts education. They also had an amphitheater created on the side of the property that later on became the beginning of what ended up being the Sanford Theater program. And so we have all of these connections with Birmingham art, really starting with the bridges. And it's just really, really neat that we have this artifact among us that we have a chance to preserve. George's, the sculptor, a World War I veteran, he actually has a number of pieces of work throughout the world, but right here in Birmingham, you can still see his work at the entrance of the Jefferson County Courthouse. And in 5 Points South, we have the famous Brother Brian statue. It's not the animal statue, it's a different one. But he's very much part of the fabric of Birmingham, just as Eleanor is. Their legacy is one of great respect for the arts within this community. And just like they have these programs that are their legacy, this house is their legacy too. And we want to protect it and we want to save it. Our main goal for this restoration is not just to make the Pink House safe and make it shine, but we want the property as a whole to be protected and restored. And we want the Homewood community at large to know that we have a deep respect for what this property means and for the stories that it holds and its historic integrity of the aesthetic that is already established. We are going to respect that. And we've really held that close to heart with the plans that we've made, specifically for the placement of the pieces that we need to get approval for today. And Clayton's going to talk a little more about the variances, but leading into that, I just wanted to share why those variances are important to preserving the property as a whole, because that property does have such rich historic value to be protected. Clayton?
Thanks, Meg. So yeah, let's get down to the brass tacks, the height variance that we're requesting today. So the large addition to the Pink House that we're proposing to build will face Roseland and look like it's on Roseland. The Pink House faces Edgewood Boulevard. So we've been down a couple of paths, but this specific plan has us squishing together all of the 5 lots. So the goal is for the property to be one lot in perpetuity. So doing that, we can only have one single family residence on the property. We've tried to skin this cat a number of ways, but this ended up being, again, after 9 months of doing this ended up being the best recommendation. We thought, like Rachel said, preserve the Pink House and allowed us to have a house where our family felt comfortable in. So the house, the large addition that's facing Roseland that looks like its own standalone house, the reason for the height variance is since it's a single family structure, you have to measure from the bottom of the pink house door all the way to the top of the Roseland facing addition. That wouldn't be a problem if we had a flat lot. So the issue is we have a slanted lot. It goes up exactly 11 feet and 6 inches. So the slope of the lot goes up, and if this new addition were to be built on Roseland, we would not need a variance. But as it stands, we do need a rather large height variance to be able to make this plan work. And again, we've been through a number of iterations of this, and we feel like this is the best one that preserves the history of the property, that preserves the history of the pink house, and allows us something that our family can use. The second thing we're asking for is a pool variance, and this one's simply because we have no backyard. We feel like we definitely have a lot. This is 1.4 acres when it's squished together. As I'm sure most of you know, there's a big tree barrier around it. We will obviously have to have a fence around it. But the pool would go in the side yard, and the reason that we put it there is that it's a really good transition from the pink house to the new addition. So again, the goal here with our landscaping and our pool design was when you look at the pink house here, you still see the pink house, and you don't see this other structure, or it's kind of like it's another house, over here on Roseland. And then the pool transitions, it keeps the same Italianate architecture of the pool, and it transitions over to the side and keeps that same look and feel. The pink house gardens actually have 4 different little ponds around it that George has designed and he built, and this is meant to supplement, add to, and look, in the same aesthetic as that. So that's the reason for the pool variance. And again, as you mentioned, we're going to disregard the fence that goes to the city council.
Did you mention all 4 sides, no true backyard?
Right. Yeah. The reason for the pool variance is there's no true backyard. There's an alley, an easement, and then two street facing. It's all 4 sides.
It's exposed on all 4 sides,
right.
and therefore by code does not have a rear yard.
You want to talk a little bit about our community outreach and support. And I'm sorry, we haven't been pointing towards the packet, but you can see the current condition of the pink house on your second tab there, kind of the presentation we're walking through right now. And then Rachel's going to talk a little bit about the community comments and signatures.
So we've wanted to make sure that we've been very transparent about our plans as we've come and developed them, and we wanted to share them with the community and with our neighbors. And we are so grateful for the warmth and kindness and support that we've gotten from around us. It's been very, very overwhelming. There's been an outpouring of support, and we thank you, Homewood. You're wonderful. There have been many supportive comments that we've put into the community comments tab of your packet, but we have some of those from the Pink House Plans Facebook page that we created to update and let people know, all the information that we've prepared for you today. And people are able to submit, hey, I really like these plans, or hey, can I ask this question? And so we've really been proactive about addressing the questions of the community as they've come to us. So we've had some positive feedback through Facebook. We've also hosted in person 2 meetings that we held at the Pink House, where we invited all of our surrounding neighbors and went door to door to make sure that everybody knew that they were invited, and we presented the exact information that we have for you today and answered any questions that anybody had. And meeting those neighbors and talking about what we have hoped for the Pink House is something that people have overwhelmingly shown support and excitement for, and we're very grateful for that. In addition to the 2 well-attended events in person, we also hosted a Zoom meeting online, just in case anybody wasn't able or comfortable attending in person. We did a virtual presentation of this exact same information and answered any questions that the community had. And the theme of that is we've gotten so much love and support from Homewood, and we really appreciate it. And we, in that process, have gained a number of signatures. And so there's another tab in your presentation packet. We have 190 signatures and counting through our efforts, whether it's door-to-door, coming to one of our hosted events, or through our online platform on ipetition.com. We've been able to collect a good number of signatures that we are so grateful for, that really demonstrate the kindness and support of our Homewood community.
In conclusion, we hopefully you realize the detriment of the pink house. We really hope people understand it's important from a historical artifact in the city. At the risk of sounding desperate, we're at a point where we really can't kick the can down the road anymore. We just 3 months ago, our insurance company dropped liability coverage on the house. I can't get liability coverage because of the detriment of the pink house. It can be restored. It can be beautiful again. It's going to take a big financial commitment by us. We're going to be significantly underwater in this thing, but this is our forever home. Like we don't want to leave here ever. We want to be here until old age, and we really love this, and we really would appreciate your support and the yes vote from the BZA today, and we really appreciate you guys listening to our presentation.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I don't want to rush you. Is that everything you wanted to say?
Yeah, you're good.
You'll get a chance again when we ask you questions. Sure. And if the public has any questions, we'll try to kind of hold them and answer them in with everybody else's. Okay, is that okay? Okay. All right, we'll open up the public portion of this meeting. And like I said before, if you'll come forward to the podium, state your name and address, and sign in on the sheet. And I'll give you 2 minutes to ask your questions or make your comments.
There we go. My name's Ben Ray. I'm at 311 St. Charles.
But you're in sign.
Yep. I've been neighbors with Clayton and Rachel for about going over 6 years. I just want to talk about how awesome people they are. We grill out, have fun. I think they are the perfect people to take on a project like this. I know their heart's really into it. And, you know, one of the things my wife and I were talking about is why would we waste a chance to preserve the house, the history of it, you know, the history of the house in Homewood. And Clayton just mentioned it, which I was going to mention is, you know, who in this room would keep a project going without liability insurance? And I think that just shows the dedication of them wanting to preserve the pink house. I hope Alexander Schnorr is not in here, but and I know Clayton, and I was hesitant to mention this, and I don't know if Clayton would want to, but Clayton's going to be in over $4 million in the hole to do this project. He's spending millions to preserve the history and save and the town only raised $40,000 during their efforts in the previous. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name's Anthony Cerasi, and I live at 515 Edgeland Place. I met Clayton for the first time about 2 years ago, specifically looking at the pink house with him. Since then, over the past 2 years, I've gotten to know him better. Sorry, 2 years, I meant 1 year. Anyways, I've gotten to know him better. We've discussed the pink house lots since then. I've lived in Homewood for about 10 years between two addresses. And we've moved to other cities, and we always want to come back because we want to live in Homewood. And one of the things that my kids love to see my wife loves to see, our families love to see when we walk around every weekend is the pink house and the gardens. And, you know, over the past 10 years, it's gotten worse. It keeps deteriorating. We know the issue with liability insurance now, but there's been only one person who can step up and do it, you know, and really save the pink house, and that's been Clayton and Rachel. They've, you know, as he stated with his experience, they've done lots of historic structures. They have the mindset to do it and the passion to do it. And I don't think anybody else can step up and have those criterias. And so we want to say our support for it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Elizabeth Sikora. And I feel like I'm in a little bit of a unique position with Rachel and Clayton in that I know them first as a neighbor. I live next door to them on Irving Road where they live right now. And we just got to know each other. I was a single female living by myself. They were wonderful friends, beautiful neighbors, just the kind of neighbors. I'd come home and our hedge would be cut and my yard would be cleaned up and I'd be like, Clayton, did you do that? And he'd be like, oh, it's no big deal. You know, I just had my guy over here. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'll pay next time. No. You know, so just inviting me over, just wonderful neighbors. And that developed into friendships with them, close friendships. 3 years ago, I moved I met them in 2015, lived next door to them for 3 years. And then I live on 208 East Edgewood now, East Edgewood Drive. So now I'm on the other side of Oxmoor with the pink house. So we'll be neighbors again. But yeah, when I went to sell my house, Clayton had said, you know, I might be interested in buying it if you'll let me know if you're going to sell it. So I went to him and I said, Clayton, I'm going to move over to East Edgewood. Are you interested in buying the house? And Clayton said, yeah, absolutely. So the whole process of working with them, me just not having a lot of knowledge in selling a home, and Clayton with his real estate background, he handled the whole process beautifully. Just was so kind and patient with me and walked me through everything, and then just was very fair through the whole process. And it was a great experience working with them. So that's why I say, yes, we've been friends and neighbors, but also I've gotten to work with him a little bit in the context of buying and selling a home in Homewood. I'm really excited about this project. The other thing, Rachel and I are very close friends, and her love for history, as they've mentioned, is just, it has been really cool to hear her talk as a teacher, as a sommelier. She's wonderful at expressing like the joy that they found in the pink house. And I love, last point, then I'm finishing up, but that they are not from Homewood, and I'm not from Homewood. I don't have any family in Birmingham, and they've come from other places. They've lived other places. Rachel's from Nashville. They've seen other places, and they have chosen to Homewood. It's not that they were from here and they just moved home. They said out of all these places, they want to be here, and the time and energy that they've invested, it's just been really lovely. And so, yeah, I hope, I'm excited about to see what they're going to do. Thank you.
Would you state your name again, please?
Oh, yeah, it's Mary Elizabeth Sikora, Sikora. Sikora, yeah.
Thank you.
So my name's Conrad Anderson. I live at 416 Edgewood Boulevard, further down the street from the pink house. I don't know Clayton and Rachel, or I didn't know them until I met them when they put something in our mailbox, and others in the neighborhood inviting us over to see what it is they were planning to do. There gets to be a lot of misinformation out there, and they wanted to answer questions and wanted their neighbors to know what they were planning to do. And so I don't know them beyond that, but I will say I kind of question their sanity a little bit for where they are and what they're proposing to do. But I think it's terrific. You know, there's two big concerns that we've always had, you know, with the pink house. One is it being torn down and not being there anymore. And two is dividing it up into 5 lots. And I was here, and probably some of you that are up here were here several years ago, and there were a lot more people in this room that were very angry about that. And fortunately, we've got that turned around. I think what they're proposing to do resolves, every single problem or concern that neighbors and the community have had with this, and I can't think of a single reason not to approve the request that they're asking for today.
Good evening, Ryan Thompson. I reside at 1200 Roseland Drive with my wife Kate and our 4 boys. I was kind enough to let Conrad go before me, not realizing that he would steal literally every single one of my points. So per your recommendation, I'm going to echo everything that Mr. Anderson said and several others. Some beautiful comments. One other person said that they come at this with a fairly unique perspective. I think I do as well. Our property literally rides right into the back of the Pink House. We share the alley. We are adjacent to their property. Yeah, let's see. So I am right here. You see this terrible white fence, overgrown greenery, that's mine. It all needs to be taken down. We'll take care of that at some other time. But we are right there. And the proposed height variance will probably directly affect me and my family more than anybody else. And like others in this room, we had lots of questions. The Mobleys were generous enough to share with us their proposal. It's a lovely proposal. I think it blends very nicely preservation of the historic charm and rich history of the home, while also providing functionality for their own family, which is critical. I think if I were in their shoes, I'd be doing the exact same thing. Won't belabor the point because Mr. Anderson already said it, but we were always concerned that there wouldn't be that kind of 1 in a million person or family that could come in and take care of this property, preserve it, and not just preserve it, but really maximize it, not only for their own benefit, but selfishly for the benefit of the entire community. We found them. That's the Mobleys. And so I think it would be an absolute shame if we couldn't see this project move forward. Candidly, I don't know where this goes if it doesn't move forward. I do somewhat fear that we may end up back in a scenario where there could be 5 houses that are plopped down there, and it is what it is. If that's where we got to go, I think that'd be disappointing, especially given the rich history we have here. If that's not what happens, then I suppose it could just sit there and perhaps become something of a public nuisance, just fall down. And the Mobleys here are proposing to save the facade, invest in it. It's been said once, it'll be said many times more tonight, but they're going to be way underwater on this deal. And again, it takes such a unique family who cares about the property, the city enough to go that far underwater. That's the Mobleys. And so the Thompson family at 1200 Roseland Drive, without condition and emphatically supports the proposal of the Mobleys. And I will get it on the record, I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but I've been promised a perpetual easement to the proposed pool. So when that's built, we, the Thompson family, will be on site. Thank you for your time.
My name is Jake Collins, and I live at 203 Broadway Street. Just speaking from a historical perspective, I've written a book on Homewood, and so I've looked through thousands of old photographs of Homewood and was even part of the documentary that was done on the Pink House several years ago. And so there's really 2 things about this project that stick out to me. One, the house is worth saving. Just from a historical standpoint, there's not much south of Birmingham that has any historical significance as much as this house does. I mean, there's a lot of historical value to this property. But 2, and this is the thing that I learned about just doing the book and doing a lot of historical stuff in Homewood. Certainly the buildings, the homes, all that stuff is part of the city of Homewood. But what makes Homewood special are the people that live here. And we've got a couple over here who is going way above and beyond what anybody should or could do to preserve the history of a very important structure in this city. And if we can just remember that this city, what makes this city great is the people who live here, and we've got a couple over here who is doing everything they can to not only preserve the property, but enhance the property so that people can enjoy walking by and looking at that garden for years to come. And so I've got all my support behind them, and I really hope that this will work out for you guys. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name is Will Gardner. Like Jake, born and raised in Homewood.
Your address, please, and your
Oh,
address.
Sorry, 911 Irving Road. We live a couple houses up from Clayton and Rachel right now. Short and sweet, I'm here more as a character reference. I have met Clayton 3 years ago through the neighbors, and have also, slightly, I guess we kind of do business together, run in parallel circles. So we've connected him with some of our business partners, and he's done the same. So Clayton, if he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. High character, high quality, and from growing up here in Homewood, same. Just reiterate what everybody else is saying. The pink house is a staple, and I vote, and I would love to see it preserved. And I think they're the right people to do it. Thank y'all.
Hey, my name is Dana Langford, and I live at 206 Edgewood Boulevard, and our property is adjacent to the pink house, and we have lived in our home for 17 years, and we have just always loved looking over the, from our windows and looking at the pink house. So we were, I think, most nervous about the plans for the pink house as we were sitting here like 2 years ago, and it was very crowded, and we were just thinking, is this the last? We need to take pictures to, show our children when they are older, like, yes, you did live next door to this. So we were very excited. And the first owners that bought it, were somewhere here, but I think also in Colorado, so that made us nervous as things were happening, and a limb fell on a car, and and the owners of the pink house were in Colorado, and it just seemed like they were distant. So we were very happy to hear about the Mobleys purchasing the pink home, and we became more excited as Clayton and Rachel came around, knocked on our doors, I think as early as Christmas, and were introducing themselves to us and letting us know of their plans, and we read about it in the papers. But when you met them face to face, and then went to their open house or open yard that they had, and invited us in, and they had multiple times, and it was just wonderful for us to meet other neighbors there, but to see the plans, and they have been so transparent with all of their plans. And so just knowing that they want to preserve this beautiful historic place and to raise their children there themselves, and has been very calming for us, because this is going to be our home for many, many more years. So we were very grateful for them. And Rachel mentioned the word respect a lot, and I just felt like we feel respected by the Mobleys, and that they are wanting to make sure we know, and to clear up any misconceptions. There was a lot at the beginning, and so they've been so kind and so gracious to communicate those plans with us. And so we are we are just wholeheartedly in plans for that. So thank y'all.
Hey, good evening. My name's David Kinman. I live at 212 Broadway, so about a block and a half from the pink house. And before that, I lived at 212 West Linwood on the other side of the pink house. So I've lived on the perimeter of the pink house for about 17 years now. I'm a lawyer, and I first got to know Clayton in 2014 when we were adverse to each other in matters, and developed a friendship over that, and he hired me, and so now he's a client. But he's not only a client, but also a good friend, and through that I got to know Rachel. And I have been helping them behind the scenes, kind of navigate various parts of this redevelopment. And so I'm going to make more of a technical argument, or just a technical position for you. I know one of the concerns specifically about the height variance is that it has very rarely, if ever, been granted since the zoning ordinance was adopted. And to that end, I would just reiterate the ability to really impress upon the community the uniqueness of the pink house. When you talk about all the factors, from the slope of Roseland to all the historical significance that we've had, to the mere size of the lot. I mean, how many lots in Edgewood or in Homewood more generally are that big, right? They're few and far between. So if there's a reluctance or a fear that this might somehow, the height variance specifically might somehow create expectations of future variances being granted or that kind of thing, I think the unique nature of the Pink House is on its own really unprecedented. And so, I mean, for all these various factors, and then adding all the financial elements that are at play and that kind of thing, I think that's something that this committee can really impress upon. And because you're thinking about all the various unique natures that are the Pink House. It's so clearly distinguishable from anything else we have. And because of that, I mean, I've lived on the perimeter, but in the past 2 months, since I knew the owners, we've been there. And it just, once you see the gardens, once you see the amphitheater, once you see everything that they're going to preserve, you realize how vitally important it is and how vitally unique it is. Thank you very much.
Hey, my name is Jeff Langford. I'm Dana's lesser half. We're at 206 Edgewood Boulevard. We've been there for 17 years.
Would you sign the sheet, please?
Sir.
Sign in.
Ma'am. Yep.
Thank you.
So we've been there for 17 years. We've been at another house in Homewood for 8 years. We've raised our kids here. We love Homewood dearly. I would never want to live anywhere else in the state unless maybe it was Albany. But right here in Homewood, it has been great. We've lived next door to the previous owners. You know, the only thing, we love going out on our back deck and seeing the Amazon jungle, basically, right in the middle of Homewood, off our back deck, and we know that they will preserve that natural beauty back there. I wasn't against, you know, I'm all for someone that has property rights, but I was glad when they bought the home and decided to redo and renovate in the way that they have. They've been totally transparent to us. They've been great coming up and talking to us. We're really one of only two directly adjacent neighbors to them, along with Mike and Laurel on Atshaw. So we've really enjoyed meeting them several times. They've been totally open, and you know, we're totally on board with what they want to do to preserve the house, renovate it, and build it back into something that you know, everyone can kind of look at and see the historical value in. So
thank you.
I just wanted to give them those props. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chase Ferguson. I live at 1010 Irving Road. I'm currently neighbors with Clayton and Rachel. I've gotten to know Clayton and Rachel over the past year and a half, and I've had numerous conversations with their intentions of the Pink House, and they are 100% what everyone else is saying. They want to preserve it and keep the true history of the Pink House. Now, as we all know, it's very clear that the value of the property, someone could easily tear down, destroy the secret gardens, and demolish this incredible history. He could do that and sell the lots without any variances, but I think we should honestly thank him, like everyone else said, coming in and truly saving the Pink House for the history and what it truly means to the city of Homewood. I think that is the best possible outcome for the Pink House. Thank you.
Excuse me, would you give me your last name again?
Ferguson.
Ferguson.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You are.
My name is Michael Atshaw. I live at 1107 Palmetto Street, so I'm the other directly adjoining neighbor. We've lived at that property for about 18 months and previously lived in a historically preserved home on another portion of Homewood. I'm not originally from Homewood, but I'm someone who does appreciate history, and since I've lived here have tried the best I can to learn the kind of the uniqueness of this little town kind of next to a big city. And Homewood's a great place. I plan on being here the rest of my life. And I think I own the best property in Homewood. I love it. And one of the reasons I love it is because it is next to such a unique property at the Pink House. We also had a lot of anxiety, I think, my wife and I, buying the home that we did, because at that point there was this potential for that lot to be split and have 5 or 6 potential new homes built there. And with the Mobley's plan, a lot of that anxiety went away. I think they have obviously taken a lot of time and effort to learn about the property and come up with plans to honor the previous owners and this community. And we are fully on board with their plans, and I hope that this committee will also honor their commitment to this community and approve their variances. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Brian Jernigan. I live at 141 East Linwood Drive. I have a degree in architecture and a degree in interior architectural design. I am not a licensed architect. I did work on this project with Holly Ellis. Some of the things I want to ask is, are you working with a preservation society of any sort to save the house?
We are, Jake is somebody who spoke earlier. I don't know if he's here anymore, but we intend to work closely with him. He's very much in support of the plans and preserving, and also David Schneider is a historical consultant that's worked on a lot of the downtown Birmingham, 1 house, 2 buildings that we've done. So David is engaged as well, kind of awaiting movement.
Okay. I mean, when I started on this project with the Ellises, I mean, I was having vines cut out of the house and tarps put on, and I've noticed that since I stopped working on this at the beginning of the pandemic, the tarps have like just deteriorated. And I'm wondering how much water is getting into the house now. And I know that y'all are not an architectural review board, but the style of the house being a Mediterranean with lower roof pitches against what I've seen shown, which looks like a Queen Anne or a Victorian, it just doesn't quite fit. And I know you're not supposed to match the architecture with your new addition, but it seems like they're 2 completely different styles. I mean, Mediterranean and just rambles. It's originally had a barrel clay tile roof, and I'm just wondering how, if you're addressing any of the style of your new structure, the new house, to the original, and just making that transition.
Yeah.
So a lot of the features.
Could you wait and answer that later until, because we're all going to ask you the same question.
Okay.
That's really it. I know that the house is simple and that the artists that lived there did a lot of Art Deco, Art Nouveau sculpture. The portico drive-through is more Art Nouveau, and I'm just wondering how that really fits into the style of what you're planning. And there's a large area over to the back right side of the property that would hold a pool. And it would keep it behind the house. I understand that, I mean, it looks like a beautiful, almost Grecian something. I haven't seen the plans of it. I've seen just some sketches of it, but that does look beautiful, but I'm questioning why that can't go to the rear of the house also.
Thank you, Brian.
And I have lived in Homewood 21 years.
Anyone else here in person like to speak? Thank you.
I'm Jason Clark, 1611 Roseland Drive. and I don't know that there's anything I can add that goes to the integrity of Clayton and Rachel. I've known them for some years now, and my unique perspective is I've had the luxury of working with Clayton on a couple of historical preservations. And just to keep it brief, there's not a better person to take it on. I see his work every day and the work of the design team that's working with him. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Robbins. I live at 406 Woodland Drive. I'll echo what everybody else has said. I work with Clayton, and I've seen what he's done on historically significant properties before, and making them usable and modernized in some ways while preserving the historic character. And all I can say is I think we got a unique opportunity to have people who are willing to put in the money that it takes to preserve the pink house while also making it livable for modern day family, for a family to live there and to continue to contribute to what Edgewood has. And I live about 2 blocks away. I drive past the pink house every day, and I'm very excited about what they've got planned. So I hope you guys approve it. Thank you.
Could we get your last name?
Yeah,
please?
Brian Robbins, Robbins.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present? Okay.
Hello, my name is Martha Rabb. I've lived across the Roseland Drive from the Pink House. My family's been there since 1942. And I'm just thrilled that the Mobleys have bought it, and I'm thrilled with their plans. I just think that no one could have come in there that could do a better job than what they're doing. So I just want you to know that I think it's just a great thing, and I hope that it works out for them.
Thank you.
Excuse me, could I get your address, Ms. Rabb? You didn't give us your address.
Sorry. 300 Edgewood Boulevard.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, one more.
Hello, William Thomas. I live at 301 Edgewood Boulevard, so catty corner from the Pink House. I just want to say just reiterate some of the previous comments. I fully support what the variances that they're asking for. I think this is the best use of the property, and I do think because of the uniqueness of the Pink House that any variances granted will not set a precedent for future. And so that's it. I fully support it, so thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person? Okay, Mr. Wallace, do you have anyone on the Zoom call that has indicated that they would like to speak?
So if you would like to speak and you are on Zoom, if you would raise your hand and we will call on you. To be fair at this point as well, just to be sure, in case you don't know how to use that, if you would like to speak, you can unmute yourself at this point. If 2 of you unmute at the same time, just be respectful of each other. All right, I don't see anybody at this time, Beverly.
Okay, we will close the public portion and now open it up to questions from the board.
I have several questions. You can go ahead, sorry. I have several questions. Did you want me to ask them all at once? I have 3.
I think one at a time would help my brain.
Yeah. My first question is, I really appreciate hearing from everybody in the community and how you appreciate the historical elements. But it's unclear to me whether or not you have a pool affects whether or not you preserve the Pink House, as well as how the height of your proposed home affects whether or not you remodel the Pink House. I think there's a
Right, so
disconnect
the
for me.
pink house will be remodeled. I don't know if that answers the question, but the extension of the pool, so Georgia, the structure you see in your packet that is in such detriment is, and we didn't even mention this, is George's Bridges studio. And this is, I believe this is true, I believe it's the first art studio in Birmingham. And that's where he used to sculpt. And that's what we're so excited to get in there and renovate. And that's where the patio for, like our little patio is gonna come out of. And it will look very similar, like that's where we bring in that Italianate architecture around the house. And then this may be going too far here, but we have trees and barriers between the pink house and the Roseland facing addition and in front of the pink house. So we keep those two different designs at length, right? So they're not meshing. We very much are concerned with the consistency of the look throughout. And the pool, we believe, really kind of ties in together. You can see the pool from the new addition, and you can also see the pool from the pink house, but that's about the only thing you can see from both spots.
Great, so like how does the height affect that? Like, does it have to be that tall? Like, what's the?
We couldn't do a 2-story.
In order to minimize the footprint of the modern structure that would have central heating and air, which the current pink house does not have, the current structure as proposed needs to have enough bedrooms for a growing family to have, which right now the non-air conditioned, not heated, by central heating and air current structure is a 2-bedroom structure. It looks a lot larger because there is a large front open area as the living room, and then the studio itself is a large open area. But the accommodations for a modern family and the comforts for a modern family are not currently part of the original structure. And while we would have loved to have an easy fix and live in the pink house itself, we are not able to remodel the pink house due to the fragility of the building materials used by George's Bridges himself, and an artist who is creative and innovative, but probably today would not have been up to code perhaps. And so in order to protect the pink house and not scare it away with a crack here, a shifting wall there, we are firming it up and doing an addition to give us the modern comforts that everybody enjoys today, but also to connect it to the pink house in a strategic location that will be the least invasive to the pink house, which necessitates that we place our proposed structure in that corner of the lot. Also, by placing our structure in that particular corner of the lot and not expanding further on out across that back side of the lot, by minimizing the footprint of that structure and going up rather than out, we are protecting the trees. There are so many mature trees around that lot, particularly going towards the left side of the pink house. Placing the structure as like a sprawling ranch that is 1 story rather than going up to have 2 above ground stories is also an effort to protect not just the pink house, but the integrity of the grounds as a whole. In addition, I feel like this might also address another question you had about the pool. Is having the pool a requirement to fixing the pink house? For our vision of our family living there, yes, it is.
It's not a technical requirement, but for us being there,
So if you didn't get a pool, you would move?
Well, we looked, Ms. Hand, we looked at, over here on the right side, call it the right side, I don't know the directions that well. Over here, we would not have needed a variance to build our house over here, right? Same square footage, everything, we could have built over here, but as you see, there's the amphitheater. We would have had to bring down the amphitheater. And like Rachel said, all this mature growth, like this is where George has had his workshop where
blacksmith
he,
shed.
yeah, where he
He forged the iron that's on all these
yeah,
gates
so
that
we
are
just-
around the property.
Again, it's kind of in the spirit of that we were seeking the variance because we didn't want to build on that lot, and we want to squish we want the lots to come together because I fully plan to, if approved, to get this on the National Register of Historic Places, which pretty much locks it in. I mean, I don't think Homewood would ever break it back up into 5 lots, but I think this would lock it in forever because you'd have to go to Homewood and then you'd have to go to a national level to be able to do that. So that's I don't know if that helped or not.
What was the square footage of the footprint of your remodeled house?
I think we're like 8,000 on the new addition, 8,000 square feet or
It's-
so.
it's
That's with the
8,000.
basement. That's with the basement.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
just on
with
the
it.
footprint, what is it?
About 25 to 3,000 in the total footprint, including the connection to the pink house.
Great, and then I just have 2 more questions. They're easy. Are you going to be living in the pink house, and is it going to be open to the public?
We will be residing in,
Yes and no.
yeah.
Yes, we
We will
will.
be residing
It'll be
there.
kind of a mother-in-law suite for folks to come and if we have family in town, but it's really more of a preservation thing to us. But yes, it will be permanently attached to our house, and it will we will be living in it. And no, it cannot nor will not be used as a event venue or a museum this is our personal
personal
residence,
private
right?
residence,
And
and,
we-
and it's not an event venue for hire.
Or
Great.
museum.
Thank you so much.
Can I get some help from staff on the, kind of the rear yard on the alleyway? The exposure not allowing for the pool in the back, I guess I'm just not clear on that.
When you have a corner lot, you don't technically have a rear yard because you have 2 sides and a front, or 2 fronts and 2 sides. So they have the primary front, which is the direction that the pink house currently faces, and then they have their secondary frontage. Well, when the property lines opposite a front is a side. So we have those two fronts, 2 sides, no rear, technically. Since there is no rear, and since the code requires that a swimming pool be in the rear yard, and a matter of fact, it states that the only accessory structure that's permitted in a side yard even is a detached garage. So based on there being no rear, even if they had said, oh, we want to put the pool on the other side, they couldn't, because as a side, that's not a rear yard again. It's a side yard. So technically, there is nowhere on the lot that they could put a swimming pool that would be a rear yard.
But it's not the fact that it's on the alley that prevents it from,
It's not the fact that, I'm sorry.
it's on the alley. Like, the alley doesn't make
No,
that
the
side
alley-
of the property a front.
No, the
Okay.
alley is not a front.
Right.
Sorry, Mr. Foley. I think I implied that, but I didn't. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
But I think common sense would suggest, both with the pink house and the new addition, that the rear of your property is behind both structures. So what efforts were made to explore those options to put the pool behind the pink house and behind the new addition?
Right, we again, kind of the spirit of this was tying the 2 in, and we did have that on when we were looking at on that right side where the amphitheater is. We were looking at putting the pool behind, but again, to us that kind of destroys a lot of the historical character of the lot, the secret gardens, if you will, and we just didn't want to again, we tried to make our plan preserving that history and also having something that we wanted as a family.
And a pool that is easily accessible from the structure that we're proposing to build. That also goes into the factor of building where we want it to be.
I'm Patrick Lancaster. I'm the architect working on the project. One of the issues that Clayton also mentioned is the pool placed in the back right-hand corner impedes on the amphitheater, which then has to be removed. Also in the middle behind the pink house, which you would, if you were just looking at a normal lot, you would think that's the backyard. There's a moss garden with 2 very mature trees and a stone wall that's trying to remain as part of the project. That is sort of the back door and also attached to the porte cochere that the gentleman was mentioning, that attaches to the back of the house. That's all trying to be maintained as part of the historic character of the original pink house property. And so in order to put a pool somewhere, we're trying to find a spot that is the least sort of invasive. That left-hand side is fairly flat. It has a couple steps down. The other point is that back right-hand corner, like they were saying, there's buildings and things that are there that are historical. It's also very sloped. The whole back side of the site behind the pink house goes drastically uphill. So to put a pool over there, you would either be building up on top of it, or you'd be building a very large retainage at the alleyway and then putting a pool in, which is a lot of earthwork. It's a lot of detriment to that whole back end. They're trying to sort of maintain the easiest place to put it for the site itself, to keep the gardens as best as they can.
I've got several questions. In your time frame, is the restoration of the pink house and the construction of the new structure simultaneous?
Same time. And it just makes sense to have one contractor over there doing, and we have to connect them, right?
That's my concern, that you would complete the new structure and not have the pink house ready to connect, so you couldn't get a certificate of occupancy.
Yeah,
because you
it'll be in
couldn't
there.
tie the two.
It'll be in
But
there.
you're like,
Well, what Mr. Leboeuf, one of the, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. One of the most expensive things about the pink house money pit, if you will, is air conditioning in that thing, like air conditioning and electrical, and that's just one of those things where we didn't. It's just going to take a lot of time and effort and money, and we want that. We will put that in there, and it'll be in our permit.
I'm fairly familiar with what was going on with it previously, and I knew the Hansons as well.
Okay.
And I understand the condition. I understand the way the pink house was constructed, and the differences between that and today's construction methods, and the problems that has left us with today. And so I'm very concerned about something happening to the pink house because it's being ignored to do the new project. I'm also kind of concerned about, and I believe someone else had mentioned this, it has to do with the height of the new house. That style of design, and I understand you don't want to try to copy the pink house, I get that. I totally, and I would not want you to do that. But I think there might be other designs or other ways to mitigate the differences so that the roof height doesn't have to be quite as much and it's not quite as obvious, the differences between them. And I'm not an architect, so I'm not going to spout out different styles of architecture here, but I think there are ways possibly to mitigate that. And I was wondering if you had investigated that, or was this, I don't want to misname it, Queen Anne or Victorian, whichever it is.
That's it. He was spot on, right? Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have all the gingerbread on it, so it's not really Victorian. So,
That's right.
So I'm leaning toward, but I don't know. Maybe the drawing just didn't have everything.
And this elevation is a little bit misleading. This is accurate, right? But that tree barrier would block the pink house completely.
I understand that.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm just.
Well, and so the pink house has, as part of its main character is that front gabled pitch roof. When you look at the front of the pink house, that's the pink house. It's got the front porch that sticks out with the arched openings. So the intention with what they wanted, which was a Queen Anne home, that they wanted to build on this lot, while also characterizing it with the pink house itself. So we've got the sort of Queen Anne columns that have the arch character that matches a little bit that sort of referential treatment. We also we don't have a drawing of it here, but the side face of the house on the addition that faces towards the pool will also have arched openings on it to echo those same porch arch openings on the sort of lower level, the basement level. So the intention with that house is to sort of keep the same pitch lines that we have on the pink house. So the pitch of the roof is close in height. It's a little bit higher on the newish, but not as much as you think it is. The drawing,
visually,
I know it looks like it's a lot. I think a lot of it has to do with all the other things that are attached to it. You know, we've got the spire over here on the left and everything else. That's more in character with that house. And I would say that the whole idea of having the house look different is part and parcel to what they want to do with this property. They want to preserve the pink house and have the pink house as its own artifact in the garden, and not be this weird amalgamation of somebody added something to it that then sort of, you know, devoids the whole pink house identity. So that's the hope for the new house.
Okay.
Additionally, I'd like to speak to that as well. The proposed structure is very much inspired by design features that are not only present in the pink house with the shape of the arches, but also what remains of what used to be a stable, a horse stable in that back corner of the lot. I wanted to make sure that we echoed the key architectural features of that structure in the structure that we are creating. And so it has 3 arches and a turret. And at the very beginning of our planning meetings, I said, okay, if we're putting this here, then I want 3 arches and a turret. And so part of the height is putting a turret on that thing. But also I wanted to make sure that we were echoing and honoring the structure that was there and kind of keeping that as part of the story still. But we are going to make sure that the arches facing the pool are certainly the same shape as the arches facing Edgewood that are existing on the pink house porch. So there are features that are being carried across both both structures that have been strategically made to honor the property as a whole.
Is there some reason you haven't been doing any restoration work since you've bought the house?
Doesn't
appear to be.
Just candidly, we've spent about $350,000 on architects, structural engineers. We've had 2 structural engineers. We've spent a ton of money, and we can't do it anymore. Like unless we're able to get this across the finish line, because we originally went through one plan, and we won't go into all those details. We thought this was going to work, and then we designed everything around this because this is what was supposed to work, and then that didn't work. So we kind of retooled. We retooled a couple times, but this last time was the hey, this is what we think honors the history as much and allows our family to be there, comfortably.
And one other question. Since we're supposed to be considering your variances as they relate to the code, can you give me some part of the code that this relates to? Either one of these.
I think
that
Lizzie,
might be
we
a
have to bring our experts for that. I'm sorry.
That's why I'm looking over at him.
Oh, it's so nice and quiet. My name's
That's the tough question.
Lizzie Frazee, I'm with CCR Architecture. The uniqueness of the property is the hardship. There is nothing in the building code that would dictate the height. It's just the zoning code. And the sloping site and preserving the pink house is what is creating this hardship. And I understand a zoning variance has to be based on hardship. So it's the unique character of the property. There is no other pink house in Homewood.
Well, and I would say that as Clayton mentioned earlier in their conversation, the house itself, the addition that you had a second ago, from Roseland's side, if you measure from the front door, which is the typical measurement of a house, it's under 35 feet.
Yeah.
That portion that you see as a house on Roseland Avenue meets the zoning
Right,
requirements.
I understand that.
The hardship is the connection, which then, and the placement of the house, which makes it such. And I'd echo the same thing, you know, the uniqueness of the property and everything else makes it sort of.
What is the time frame for the construction?
We're shooting for 12 months. We're ready to hit the ground running.
And would the house be totally stabilized and renovated by then too?
The
pink house?
The pink house will be stabilized within.
I mean, wiring,
3
everything.
months. No, the wiring. I mean,
I want to know.
We got to go in and stabilize it now. It
I
needs a
understand
roof.
that,
There's
but I want to
tarps
know
and
the
like-
time frame for each
the
piece.
whole thing. I mean, we're shooting for 12 months. It could be 18, right? And I hope it's not longer than that. But I just try to be honest. Right?
All right.
The timeline is.
12 is really ambitious.
Yeah, 12 is really, the timeline is a typical construction process.
Yes.
It is not a phased
Exactly.
construction
Okay.
process.
Okay.
So it is combined.
That's what I
all
wanted to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd also like to follow up there for coding, the specific codes that we need to talk about is the fact that a corner lot has no rear, that is established by code, and then the 12-foot elevation change from the established front door of the original structure versus the first floor of the addition. That is where it pertains to code.
We understand that. I understand that. Anyone else got questions? I'm sure, Mr. Cole?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you do.
Very unique, ambitious project. I also question your sanity. Some of these questions may be for the board too, and maybe I'm just trying to parcel some things out, but what establishes the first floor to the pink house versus the new house?
What establishes?
Meaning, which one do we're counting the pink house's first floor, which tells us the addition is too high, versus why can't that house's first floor establish the height?
Because it doesn't exist. This is an addition. I mean, if, let's say, later on, if they were to get tonight's variance and later on chose to build another addition.
Share your mic.
I'm sorry. Say that they chose to build another addition in the future. If they wanted to change which is front and which is not, which is primary and which is secondary front, then you could have that as their front entrance.
I know, I'm just saying, I still think you could, this is a master plan redoing the whole thing. Like, that could be reestablished, is my thought. 2, does it have to be connected? Is there a reason?
Yes.
Why?
It's single-family residential.
But the pink house almost is a secondary structure that could be labeled as an accessory.
We tried going that route
Okay.
earlier.
So that's kind of where I'm going, is there seems to be some rules, obviously, that are applying to this that were written with none of this in mind.
I agree.
Right. Most rules for our zoning are based on single lots.
Yes.
Front, side, rear.
Your 50-foot
We've-
basic
And
width
this
lot, yes.
two-front thing never existed till recently, so that wasn't even part of the thing back then, that could work out that you never have a rear yard, which still makes no sense to me.
I agree.
All right, so if it wasn't connected, the house could just be built and you wouldn't even be here.
No, well,
I'm just saying, if it wasn't connected, it meets the height.
it meets the height if it were just a standalone house
They tore
on
the
another
pink
lot.
house down and built that.
If they tore the pink house down and built this house.
So
it would
leaving the
be-
pink
yeah.
house and preserving it is kind of handicapping them at this
Correct.
moment.
Yeah, the code's just not written for.
That's the variance I haven't
This
heard
is-
someone
well,
argue about.
You know,
That's all I'm saying, it's
yeah,
just, that's,
codes are written to fit as many scenarios as
yeah,
possible.
it's never gonna fit this one.
This isn't gonna fit,
Yeah, it's never
ever.
gonna fit this one. So, being totally different also preserves the pink house, is really what you were saying. Putting a different style house doesn't mean Homewood can't handle it. Homewood has a lot of different style houses, and you're bringing back a style that is very near and dear to me anyways, from the old days, but this isn't an architectural design review board.
it's just interesting what you've all come up with. You're working with great architects and landscape architects and designers that I know. The pool, it's an ambitious pool. Again, you have no rear yard, so pick a place to put it. You know, the way the pool zoning was written was everyone thinking about a above-ground pool or a small in-ground pool behind a house. Yeah, we don't want that on the side. We don't want that in the front yard. We can't even establish a rear yard on your piece of property at this point, so. I don't really have questions. It's just, it's a unique problem that's being uniquely solved, I think, and zoning shouldn't get in the way of it. I'm also impressed with the amount of people that came to support you. I've been doing this for 2 different terms of 6 years each. I'm on 10. I've never seen that, especially in Homewood. And the way you've opened it up using social media, I applaud you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That's all I got.
Well, I would just say I applaud the effort and the investment, but to Ms. LeBluff's point, ruling or evaluating this against the letter of the law, I still struggle with the hardships.
So do you have a specific question?
No, I'm just making a statement.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
If this were a flat lot, we would not be here.
Well,
For the house anyway. The house itself does not exceed the maximum height allowed. It only exceeds that because of the grade difference from the front door. So that's really, the hardship is more of a grade change than the house itself or the structure itself, the addition.
I understand that with respect to the
Right.
residential structure
Right.
that you're doing, that, you know, you're faced with that and you can't, God forbid you dug it out and flattened it. That's not an option, obviously, but the pool is a real problem for me. I can't come up with, I'm trying here, but in the back, that, so I'm gonna get this clear in my mind. Where you show the off-alley parking?
Yep.
Up there, is that the garage where you'll be pulling into there?
Yes.
Okay, and then you've got off-street, off-alley
Yeah,
park,
off-alley park.
off whatever parking. And,
Consequently,
and then,
the neighbor has the same
right,
right there.
right. So why couldn't the pool go between
That whole area right there is that moss garden with the 2 very large trees. That's actually these 2 trees.
What are you losing on the Roseland side of the property to build the pool?
It's all just sloped earth here and the original shed that is in much disrepair in the back corner.
But aren't you losing some of the garden down there to put the pool in? There's a balustrade that goes across.
Just the balustrade that is right here, which actually is going to get essentially rebuilt as part of the pool perimeter. They're mimicking the site furniture of sorts in the pool surround. So they'll have a balustrade around the pool deck because the site does slope down the hill slightly. So this will be sitting right above grade. So they'll have an edge there, the same Italianate balustrade that matches this.
So the balustrade that is on the existing terrace that goes across that, the studio on that side of the pink house was actually brought over from the Massey Mansion downtown. And so those are historic balustrades. And we are actually going to take casts of those balustrades in order to continue that feature through the pool that we're adding. So we are extending and enhancing the established features of the pink house as heartfelt, in as heartfelt a way as we can to respect and honor what's already there and beautiful.
Would you be open to taking a second look at the pool location?
You know, we can't kick the ball down the road any longer. I'm in such a liability with this structure on this, and you know, it just, I can't kick it. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to sound desperate, but this is.
So what you're saying then is if you don't get this, then you're.
I would
gonna sell
never,
the
I would
property?
never want it to sound like a quid pro quo. Ms.
No,
Lewis.
I'm not saying that. I'm just asking what the
we
options
can't.
are.
Like, we couldn't proceed if this doesn't get approved today.
On the landscape, this is Jane Ross.
Mhm.
Hi, Jane Reed Ross, landscape
Your-
architect. I'm
Your
working on
address,
the
your address,
project.
please.
501 Kenilworth Drive.
Thank you.
I live a few blocks from here. Been walking by this house for about 30 years. This is a classic example of European terrace style gardening. And, you know, we've already talked about the history and the uniqueness of this and everything. It's a great example of this type of garden in this area. And it's my opinion as a landscape architect, I've been working for almost 40 years, and I have history working on historic gardens. I think the location of the pool and the addition to the house will disturb the garden in the least. And the location that Patrick mentioned right here, those are heritage oak trees protecting an existing moss garden that the Bridges created. I think that's an element that should be preserved. If we're gonna preserve the garden, that does it. Locating the pool right here and the house addition at that spot does the minimum disturbance to the existing garden, and they took that into consideration. There are no valuable trees in this area to preserve. And it also extends that Mediterranean style architecture with this terrace. It's sort of an extension of that. That appeals to me too, as far as the overall preservation and structure of the overall existing garden and blending the new garden. And then locating the house back here just sort of pushes it back that way, and it doesn't disturb the garden. The existing stable's gone, but, you know, for the most part, this is preserving most of the garden, which I think is pretty impressive, and I think a lot of people in Homewood have really wanted that garden to be preserved. So.
I'd like to just say one more thing if I can. The swimming pool in this location is nicely visible from both houses, from both the addition and the existing house. It is, has more eyes on it from the house owners. To tuck it in the back and hide it more would not be as safe, actually. There wouldn't be as much visual exposure to the resident that lives there, and that's overlooking the pool because of the grade change. It would be higher. We'd already talked about the grade issue.
So I love to play devil's advocate. It's one of my favorite things to do. So suppose that something happens to the pink house structure during this, something untoward, shall we say, to put it nicely, or part of it, not the whole thing, but some part that you just can't, for whatever reason. Well, I mean, that you can't restore, I'm saying, I don't know.
I mean, there are many components to it that are a little bit beyond restoration and that we'll be rebuilding. I mean, it is not Band-Aid and paint.
That studio will be rebuilt exactly as it looks, but when one of the walls is just gonna fall down, right? Like it's just gonna.
I was there Sunday, so
I
I stayed far away from certain parts of it because I didn't want to get too close.
And that porte cochere that's right here is
Yeah.
actually the connection piece to the addition.
Yeah, that thing's
So we're
in
gonna
bad shape.
rebuild that in its
We're
exact
gonna take it down and go put it over here,
so that we can
build
put it
everything
back.
and then put it back.
And that part of that inclination to do that is to keep that dividing line. So that beautiful porte-cochere face that is there, we want to keep that as the dividing edge, so that the rest of this stays historic, and we're not messing with it essentially.
And we're using as resource a lot of the historic photographs.
Yes.
Yeah.
To determine what it originally looked like, and if we're gonna go back to that look, or to keep some of the changes that have occurred. And it's a wonderful freedom we have to do that we don't always have, because we have great resources, and we have an owner that wants to do this. And we don't have the heavy hand sometimes of the National Park Service either.
I understand.
on this. So
Yeah, I mean,
And I will tell you,
make our choices.
you know, well, I haven't lived in Homewood but 30-something years, and I lived around the corner from that, and Diane always let me go in, and when I was on my jog, sit in the garden back in the day, in the 90s, when I lived over on East Linwood. But at any rate, prior to that, I was in elementary school at OLS, and let's see, I left there in 1959, so that you can do the math. So I've been around Homewood going back to 1957 in my association at OLS. And I've known about this house all along, so I just want to be sure that it's going to be okay, and that if something happens, you know, and things do, that it would still be
this
preserved.
elevation shows these are actually restored back to what they originally were not. Right now, they've actually built them up and stuccoed over them. So the intention is, especially all these things like this and the porte-cochere on the back, things that are at such detriment. It's just got to be rebuilt.
Yeah. Okay.
And we hopefully we've shown the character references for us. We do.
Well,
we
that's
do
not my.
around
That's
it.
not my.
Yeah, we love it. Like we made this whole thing so we can keep it.
And I must say, Clayton, they have tried to get this going as fast as possible.
I understood that. Well, they have.
There's been a lot of push to get it going, but there have been some real impediments.
And it's been left alone for a long time. I understand that.
Well, and the last point of the connection point that you made, you know, we originally, when we were proposing this, we proposed the house as we have it here, but it wasn't connected, and therefore it meant we wouldn't be here. If it wasn't touching the pink house and wasn't actually attached, as Mr. Cole said, it meets the height requirements. It's the fact that it has to be attached, and it's a whole situation that's making this happen.
All right.
I had a follow-up detail about the term heritage tree that I'd like to share.
Sure.
So what we mean by heritage trees, that they are native to this area, and they're mature oak trees, and they're healthy. So they're beautiful specimens. You know, I had discussed with the architects at length about how we can protect these trees and preserve them.
It sounded like it might have been closed, and it needs to be open for a public meeting.
So they're some of the best. Those two trees back there are some of the best on the whole site. Yeah. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Are there
If there were a rear yard, what setback requirements would the pool require?
5 feet.
5 feet. So that's met with that.
This is 11 feet of setback.
Ms. Ann?
Yeah, I did have one more comment. Like, we keep on talking about how, because it's connected to the pink house, that's why we're here. But there's a lot of different solutions, because if it was only one story, we wouldn't be here. If it was this way, we wouldn't be here. So I think the thing that is hard on us is that we have to focus on what we see and what we're presented. And all these hypotheticals, I think, are very valid. But we still have to decide, like, how this relates to what we need to follow. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and you know, this is coming from an architect's perspective. I think, you know, typically zoning and variances and setbacks and things like that are set within reason to set boundaries for property. you don't want a five-story house in a neighborhood. That's why they're there. So that is more my argument with the idea that if the house wasn't attached, it would be within the normal zoning requirements. Is that they're just wanting to build a normal sized house, which would be met within the normal neighborhood regulations. It's just the uniqueness of the character of the property that is.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly valid. I'm wondering though, how many houses in Homewood are 8,000 square feet and 3 stories? Right?
It's 2 stories with a basement,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
above ground it is
yeah.
a 2-story
Yeah,
house.
so it's not that much larger than a lot of the new houses that are built in Homewood.
It just extends farther back.
It's just-
And we
that's the
just so you know, it's, this is me being candid, Ms. Han. It is a horrible financial decision as it is. Without the top level, it is a horrible ×2 financial decision. So that, just being candid, that is, the value of this property is in the lots. It just is. And again, we're trying to make as big of a commitment to this neighborhood as we can, and also, not be in the whole ×2 part of it.
Could you make the pool smaller? I'm just trying to,
What is your major objection to the pool? That would be a better.
I don't have an objection to a pool at all.
No, not a pool, the pool.
I'm just struggling with the code.
Okay.
That's where I'm getting to be, if I can.
But if the code isn't keeping a rear yard.
Is actually a pool, and how much of it is a water feature?
Right, I mean, I guess that, all I see is two flat
Yeah,
blue
so-
places, so I don't know what that is.
If it helps you visualize what has been designed, we are following the natural slope of the property. It is naturally terraced off already.
Very familiar.
And so we have this first pool area up here is very shallow with a statue water feature. It's actually going to be kind of wade through down on that level, and then this entire side is where that terrace level hits, and so this will be a waterfall down to the next level. So the entire side is a water feature, very much in keeping with the integrity of the gardens that has already a number of fountains across the property. It's a key feature that we are enhancing and extending and elaborating on. And so I guess the top terrace pool creates a water feature and then comes down onto this area, which is where we'll have an area for lap swim and play.
And the little white box?
This is a covered area of the pool where the water is under, it's like a grotto structure.
Okay.
But it is a significant water feature that is in keeping with the property where we have the statue and the garden and the flow of water and the sound of water. We're committed to restoring the fountains and the ponds across the property.
I think there are 4, maybe 5 ponds that have those little water features
Yeah.
around the product. They're hard to find right now because they're so grown up, but they're there.
Would you be interested in splitting the variance requests into 2 separate ones, or do you want to
I'm
keep it all
sorry.
one?
Yeah, this is our last go at it.
So we're voting on both the pool and the height variance as one.
The pond is still, it's still there.
Yep.
And it's kind of, okay.
And there are 2 that aren't.
There are 2
they're just,
ponds
again,
on
they're
the-
so
Yeah.
overgrown,
Yeah,
right?
there's-
But they're
It's where they were a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all overgrown.
And that fall line mimics that same terrace edge.
Would you have to have that waterfall?
But it
I don't
helps the
know.
pool to follow the earth better. Because otherwise, you would actually have more of an impediment with the pool, You'd either have to, it's the same
I
as the
understand.
situation of you could
I
just set it up or
understand.
down,
I'm just talking off the top of my
I know,
head here,
I know.
brainstorm.
So you really wouldn't want to split up these two variances?
I'm sorry, this is, again, we're 9 months in, and I can't get liability insurance anymore, and I can't, like, just the restoration of the pink house is just getting it back to where it's not leaking, new roof, and you about have to do the AC at that, you have to do the ducting at that time, or need to do, and the electrical, and the structural, we're talking, you know, another $400K just to do that, right?
We are looking at a situation where we can't get insurance on this until we can fix it. And we can't start fixing it until we get our plans approved. And we've worked very hard to create plans that we really do believe protect the pink house and create a viable single family residence. This is our last shot. This is our last shot.
What do you mean by last shot? So if we keep them all as one variance, in worst case scenario, that's a no, you will sell the property? You wouldn't be willing
I have, Ms. Ann, just to be candid, I have 3 offers from new home construction developers on the lots. They're all gonna build on them. Again, I don't want this to sound like that. I don't think that helps anybody out for me to be like this or that, but this is just, again, just sounding desperate. This is it. Like we've tried so hard. We really have. I hope you believe that. To try to do what.
So is that why the resurvey doesn't go through?
That's correct. Well, I mean, why couldn't? That's the only thing I have. That if I resurveyed it, I've just lost all the value without anything approved, right?
If we want to build our dream home and invest that effort here in Homewood, this is our best shot. If our dream home is no longer a plan that is our dream, we can take that plan somewhere else.
But we very much want to do it here, right? Like this is where we want to
This
live
is where
forever,
we want to
guys.
be.
We want to
This
be
is
in
where we
Homewood.
want our kids. This is
Yeah.
where we have dreams. This is where we have dreams.
Are there any other questions from the board? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept BZA case number SV-21-06-03, both A and B requests as drawn.
I'll second that.
All right. All right. Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
No.
Ms. Hand?
No.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
And Ms. LaBeouf?
No. I'm sorry, your request is not approved. Thank you for your time. Do y'all want to tackle the bylaws tonight, or do you want to carry that over till next time?
No, we're not ready. Vicki
Okay.
is out this week.
Okay.
and,
Oh, okay, well, we had this draft, and I just didn't know if you
Okay,
wanted.
yeah.
I mean, I read it, but
I'm not ready.
we don't have to, okay. So we'll carry that over to next month. Is there any, have we left anything out? Moving things around? No? This meeting is adjourned.